So it doesn't matter how good you think we are as a team, how good we think we are as individuals. We can get better.
Robin Vince, BNY, thank you very much for being here.
It's good to be with you, Adam.
BNY was founded by Alexander Hamilton, been around, I think it's probably the oldest company in the U.S.?
It's the oldest company, it's the oldest bank in the United States. It's actually the third oldest company / organization in New York. Columbia College predates us, and so does Francis Tavern, would you believe it?
No, I did not know that. But in terms of private companies, it's top of the list, which actually makes you the perfect interview to start off the semi-quincentennial. Yeah. Are you planning a big semi-quincentennial celebration?
250 years. Well, we were there at the beginning. So our company was founded in 1784. So depending on exactly whether you want to date the U.S. to 1776 or the ratification of the Constitution, we're right around there.
Yeah. And how long, I know you weren't there at the very beginning, but how long have you been CEO of BNY?
A little over 3 years.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I was eager to have you on the Leaders Podcast is I spent last year talking to dozens of large company CEOs about their AI journeys and their efforts and sometimes their struggles to get AI adopted throughout the enterprise. And I have to say, the stories you told me were the most impressive I heard. So I'd really love for you to talk a little bit about BNY's adoption of AI.
Well, adoption is really the key, and so we're still early in this whole journey. I think all of us are learning about AI all the time. But I'll go back to the moment for me that really crystallized the importance of AI. And it was when I watched a YouTube video. Actually, my son loves watching YouTube videos, and so I do some of my learning on YouTube as well. I learned that from him. But I watched the narration by Elon Musk of the rollout of what was then the latest generation of Autopilot 12, which was the first time that particular model had moved from a rules-based heuristic system, which up until then had trained Autopilot, to actually a learned model, where Autopilot essentially had watched all the videos of all the Tesla rides, a curated list, and then on the basis of that, quote, learned how to drive. And so it was very interesting. He narrates the story a little bit as he's driving around in Autopilot with all the little nuances of when you get to a stop sign, traditionally a rules-based system would just stop, would understand, had been programmed how to deal with a stop sign. A learned system rolls at 2 miles an hour through the stop sign because that's what everybody does.
That's what everyone else does.
And when I watched that, it was just very, very clear to me that AI was going to be just an incredible transformational technology, and that we, as a company at BNY, had to take it extremely seriously.
And you had to take it seriously in part because you're a very data-focused bank. You're different than J.P. Morgan or Bank of New York. Can you?
Yeah, we're more a financial services platforms company these days. So we are in bank form. We have this terrific trust bank business. We're known for that. But what we really are these days is a dozen or so financial services platforms that really power capital markets. And so we provide at-scale capabilities in payments, in custody, in fund administration, collateral clearing, all these things that really make financial markets actually work on a day-to-day basis. So it was going to be very important, I think, for any company. By the way, AI, in my opinion, is going to be very important for any human or any company or any organization, government on down to the private sector, to really be able to embrace, because it's such a transformational capability.
So what fascinated me so much about our earlier conversations was, if you walk up and down, we're here in Davos, where you walk up and down the promenade in Davos, you'll see the words agents all over the place. You actually have agents. They have names. They have logons. They have email addresses. They're interacting with your employees on a daily basis. Talk a little bit about how you got there.
So we made a decision, and it was, frankly, shortly after I watched that video, around what I saw as the beginnings of an AI revolution.
Like 2 years ago?
It was about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that moment, we declared inside the company this was going to be something we had to take very seriously. And so our team got to work building a platform, which we call Eliza. It's named, a little bit of fun, named
Hamilton's
after
wife.
Hamilton's wife. And that platform is large language model agnostic. That is to say, it plumbs into all of the various different large language models. So whether it's Gemini, whether it's Claude, whether it's OpenAI, all of them, it's got the intelligence that comes from them, but it's proprietary to us, which means that the data is safe, very important for our clients to be able to keep that safe, and we can then have the platform within which we can build things. So we've been building agents, and we've been doing that now for a couple of years. We decided to make it a multi-agentic platform, which essentially means that the agents can talk to each other, we can plug other people's agents in, we can unplug our agents and have them work in other ecosystems as well.
The agents have names.
So we have AI solutions, and the way that the agents work is agents are trained for very specific tasks, but in a multi-agent model, the agents essentially can work together to solve more complicated or broader tasks. And one of the things that we did, and this really goes to adoption and the psychology in a company of how to adopt AI, we decided to give our teams the ability to name some of these agent solutions because that allowed them to treat them a little bit more like teammates. And in fact, you said this earlier on, but we went as far as to actually also give some of those multi-agent solutions login IDs and sort of nicknames so that they could join the team and work alongside colleagues.
So if I'm at BNY and I come in the morning and I look at my email, I may have an email from an agent.
That's increasingly going to be the case, I think.
And the agent has a name. For instance, what are the names?
Well, we have Payment Pete.
Payment Pete?
Yep. And as you might imagine, Payment Pete is responsible for some part of our payment ecosystem. And actually, that's a good example because that's actually a digital employee. So that digital employee has a login. It can actually operate in the systems. And it actually has a manager, human manager, that's responsible for training it, making sure that it actually is doing all the right things, like a performance review, if you will, quality control. And it has tasks every day.
I suppose if I get an email from Payment Pete, I know it's an agent, not a person.
So it's an interesting question, actually, because it does go to the psychology. Agents are not humans. And so while they may be digital employees, we are not confused. Humans bring magic, creativity, and they bring something very different to the table than technology does. But we've become used over the course of a long time for humans and technology to work together. So this is the next phase of humans and machines working together. And so we wanted simultaneously to make sure that people felt that they could welcome the technology in, but at the same time for us not to be confused, which there really are only humans.
But if I'm a manager in the payments division, I may have people working for me and I have Payment Pete working for me.
Yep, 100%.
Does Payment Pete have KPIs?
Of course. Quality control, they're very important, those types of things. It's got to be able to do its job well. It's got to be able to be well managed, and it has a set of tasks. And a lot of those tasks, by the way, are things that our humans don't really want to do. Because one of the nice things about these digital employees is they don't have the concept of, gosh, that's boring, repetitive, mind-numbing work. But sometimes there is such a thing as that type of work that has to get done. And so we deploy our digital employees.
How many of these digital employees do you have now?
We have over 130 at this point.
130 and continuing to grow.
Absolutely.
I thought some of them were named Eliza.
So one of them is named Eliza Holmes. Again, this is where we give our
But you want people to know when they get that email that it's from an agent,
correct,
not from a human being.
That we do.
So you already made a nod to this, but this gets back to culture. I mean, the reason why I was so impressed by this story last year was because, frankly, these were, when you initially told me about this, it was in an off-the-record conversation, not for public conversation. Most of the conversations I was having with CEOs, they expressed a lot of frustration. And the frustration really revolved around culture. And how do I get my team to adopt this new technology, embrace this new technology? Because human beings don't like change, first of all. And second, this particular round of change makes some people say, wait a minute, is this agent going to take my job? So how did you, as a leader, how did you get BNY ready for this revolutionary notion that they're going to be working side by side with agents and doing it in a constructive way?
Well, the first thing for me was just equipping myself with the knowledge. I think as a leader, you can be more confident in creating change and actually bringing people along on a journey when you actually feel good about your knowledge as well. So I took myself back to school on the topic of AI. I actually did that in the summer of 2023. Again, it was part of that early set of decision making, and I really invested time to understand more about AI at that point. And subsequently, I've benefited from being able to spend time with a lot of the world's leading thinkers on AI, which helps me to be able to have a sense, just peek over the horizon a little bit, see where I think things might be going.
How do you have that time? I mean, CEOs of large companies like yours mostly tell me, I say, what book have you read recently? They say, I don't have time to read books. This is a triple-time job.
We're all busy, but you've got to make time for things that are important, and we all do that in our lives. And I think as the leader of a large company, you make choices about how do you deal with what's urgent, how do you deal with what's important. You've got to not let the urgent and the daily activities grind out the time in a way where it's crowding it out for strategic stuff. So anyway, so I went back to that. I got myself a bit of an education on AI. I keep that up to date. I spend time with AI leaders to make sure that I'm sort of staying roughly current. And then very simply, and this has been the method of our communication culturally inside the company, is I just talk to our people about what I saw coming and why I thought it was important for our company. And there's something about the dumping the corporate speak and just being plain spoken with people. I think this will be a transformational technology. I think missing it will be deeply problematic for any institution that misses it. I use AI in my own personal life. Here's how I use it. And I just tried to bring our teams as best I possibly could on that journey. Now, it's still, of course, scary, and it's change, and how do I do it? And so educating people, and we have boot camps, 10 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours, encouraging people to participate. But that adoption...
Everybody go through the AI boot camps?
So 99% of our people have taken
close to everybody.
has taken the prerequisite training.
Yeah.
And now what we've offered is deeper. And so we say, okay, prerequisite training, 2 or 3 hours, onboard onto ELIZA. That's to make sure that people can use it, know how to use it, can use it safely, but it's still experimenting. And then what about 10 hours? What about 40 hours? We've sort of badged it so you can earn different merit badges, if you will, associated with AI. And some of our leaders are very, very enthusiastically grabbing a hold of it, and they're shining the pathway for the others.
You must have faced some pushback.
Oh, so of course, ultimately, this story is far from over. So while we have got a breadth of adoption, which we're excited about, and we've got increasing pockets of real depth, we are not an AI-first company at this stage. And I think it's going to be very important for many companies, most companies, to be deeper, fully embracing, pulling AI towards them and everything. I'm sure most people in our company, by the way, it's probably true for us today, when we go about our day, we still lean towards doing things more traditionally, and we're not necessarily AI first in everything we're doing. So that just takes time.
Culture is hard to change.
It is. Adoption and integration is not the same thing as is the tech great and could it do it today. We could use today's AI tech and transform so many things that we're doing, but it does come back to individuals adopting it, for us to reimagine workflows in all our aspects of our life and then integrate.
So a lot of the CEOs I talk to say, I've spent all this money, we've spent all this time, I've given everybody training, I'm still not seeing the ROI. I'm still not seeing return on my investment. Are you seeing ROI?
We are starting to see ROI, but it's early. And so we sit here in 2026 looking forward. I expect bigger ROI to build over time. We've tried to spend wisely and carefully, but yes, we are seeing return.
And is the return benefit coming from the top line, increasing revenues, or the bottom line, reducing costs?
Today, it's more around creating capacity, which I think is a bit of both. And so we don't view AI as just a cost exercise. We view AI as creating more time. And when you create time, you create capacity in our company, in the system, and then it becomes a management choice, which we've really delegated out across the organization. How would you like to use that time? How best to use it? Do you actually have efficiency? Will you say, hey, you know what, I don't need to make that marginal hire that otherwise I was going to make? Or can you deploy it back to customers and actually be able to create better customer experience, be able to grow revenue? That's the better version. That's our favorite version, to be able to grow as a company without having to balloon headcount in order to be able to do it.
What's happened overall to your employment during this period?
It's gone down modestly, but that's not really due to AI. That's because as a company, we're also on a transformation journey. We decided 3 years ago that we were going to reimagine our company in a whole bunch of different ways. AI has conveniently landed as part of that story. But in terms of actual headcount and capacity, it's still a small part of the story.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, you talk about transformation. Transformation is so much a part of the conversation with every company these days. You became CEO. You looked at the company. You said, we need to transform. It wasn't AI. What was it? What needed to change?
Well, as a company, we talked earlier on about the fact that we've been around for a long time. We're proud of our history, but we had lost some of the things that really make for a great company in terms of transformation, focus on growing its business and serving our customers. And so we centered ourselves back 3 years ago around a few key principles. Number one was there was more potential in our business platforms to be able to serve customers better, and we said we're going to go after that.
When you say customers, are you talking about business customers or?
Yeah, real business customers. So we are really a B2B business for the most part. We have some B2C activities, but we're more.
So it's really financial institutions you're serving.
Every company in the world has the capacity to be a customer of ours because of the breadth of different things that we do. We provide payment services, and so we can help companies collect payments. E-commerce, all sorts of things. Yeah. But at the same time, we look after investments for pension funds, for governments, for corporations, and yes, for banks and investment management companies. We're quite a broad storefront.
So you saw a much bigger addressable market than you were reaching.
We did, and the ability to do more things with customers. So we had a lot of customers who basically shopped one of our products, but we had all of these other adjacent products. And so a fun stat, the number of customers who buy from 3 or more lines of business from us now is up 60% in the past 2 years. And so that's been really about exposing the whole company to them. So in order to be able to do all of that, we had to also transform ourselves. And so we were running as a confederation of different businesses, but we weren't running as one company. We resolved to do that differently, and that was all about culture.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the Robin Vince story. Did you grow up thinking you were going to be a bank CEO? I mean, how did you get here?
No. I did a psychological profile once when I was sort of in the process of being considered to be a CEO, and I surprised, I think, the folks who were doing it because I wasn't the sort of person who was going to chew off my right arm to be a CEO. Although I love being a CEO. It was not something I set out on right from the beginning.
What did you want to do with your life?
I think like many kids, when I was graduating from university at the time, I joined another firm straight out of undergrad. I spent 25 years there. I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that time.
You're not going to mention the firm?
Yeah, I worked at Goldman Sachs for 25 years.
I just want to make sure we get that out.
And learned a lot of different things. Had a series of different careers actually within the firm, but never had a particular destination in mind. I just wanted to turn up, work with smart people, work on interesting problems, and be useful and make a contribution. And that was really what I did for 25 years that led me to the point where then I saw the possibilities maybe of being able to lead a large organization like BNY.
And where did you learn your leadership skills?
Well, I think I learned them through life to some extent. I got a lot of values from my parents, from my dad. He was always a first principles thinker. He was a math scholar, and he had this perspective on always breaking things down to the first principles. And that sounds like a technical skill, and to some extent it is, but I also think it's a leadership skill, because what do you want to try to achieve? Where are you trying to go? How are you trying to communicate? I talk to my kids about this, which is communication is for the purpose of somebody else understanding something or changing somebody's mind. And so can you be objective oriented in that? I think that first principles thinking helped with all of that. And then through the course of my career at Goldman Sachs, I was very fortunate to work in many different groups. I worked all across the company. I started as a trader. I grew up in trading. I ran a trading business. And then I did a series of other jobs. I was a treasurer, a chief risk officer, helped to run a region. I was head of operations. And so those experiences, living through the financial crisis, I was at the Fed for the Lehman weekend, all of those things, these are all crucible moments which cumulatively give you a set of skills which can be very useful.
We'll talk about the financial crisis and the Lehman moment. That was a very scary time for the world. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, one of the things that I learned, and I was reading a memoir recently of somebody that I used to work for who wrote a book, and it was just reminding me of it, so it's a little bit topical. But it's just when you're in the middle of something like that, it always feels like that's the beginning, the middle, and the end of it. You can't really see past it so well. It feels like it's the most important, most significant thing that's ever happened. But that's just because it's so present, and it isn't necessarily the case. It reminds me of the world that we live in now, 2026, complicated environment. Where are we going? What does it mean? And everybody's very, very fixated on what happened today, what happened yesterday, who said what, how was their intonation? And you sort of forget sometimes that, the world does evolve, the pendulum swings, and we just got to remember where we are and not lose that sense of perspective.
It's a discipline. It's a discipline,
100%.
the ability to step back and think about the long
And when
arc.
you've been through those things before, you can recognize it in yourself, and you could recognize it in what's happening around you. And it doesn't mean that you're not subject to being caught up in it, but I think if you can be disciplined about it, I learned that in the financial crisis, that ability to center, take a deep breath and say, okay, now let's work the problem.
How about the communication skills? You've made it clear that communication was central to your ability to begin to change the culture at BNY. Where did that come from?
Well, like many kids at the beginning, when you're starting off in your career, I took classes, courses, people took an interest in me, and it's a skill that you can develop over time. I presented in front of small groups, and then medium groups, and then big groups. I still remember the first time I got up in front of a crowd of a few thousand people. It's a thing that you can get better at. First time that you go on the radio, first time that you do TV, first time you sit on a stage. Very few people are born with that fully formed skill set. But if you put yourself to school, it's like learning AI, learning how to communicate, learning how to be a good leader. These are learned skills, and it is possible if you practice the self-discipline of trying to get better that you can.
Yeah, fascinating. We learned from our mistakes, obviously, as well as our successes. What's the biggest mistake you've made as CEO of BNY, and what have you learned from it?
So, look, we're all trying not to make mistakes as we go through. There are plenty of things. Sometimes when I look at people decisions, that's an easy thing to make a mistake on. You can go too fast, you can go too slow. And when you're trying to reshape a leadership team, when you're trying to bring an organization forward, you certainly wish on some things that you've gone a little quicker, some things that you look at and you say, gosh, with the benefit of hindsight, I've done that differently. But again, I don't wish the past away. I don't try to pretend it should be different than that. It's like, how can I learn from that? How can I try to do it a little bit better next time?
Can you give us one concrete example of a mistake that taught you something that carried on in your career?
Yeah, I think I would go back a little bit earlier in my career.
Sure.
When I think about people decisions. Certainly, you're kind of looking to try to find the best in somebody, and you wish you'd moved a little faster. Those are things that I really do look back on and say, gosh, I wish I'd dealt with that quicker.
And so now, when you see a problem, you're more conscious of the need
certainly
to move
more
fast.
conscious. Doesn't mean you're not going to make the same mistake again, but at least it means that you're being thoughtful and processing it in real time.
How would you describe your style as a CEO?
So I'm quite molecular. Let me give you the version that people who work for me would give you.
Yeah.
I care about the details. I think at the end of the day, systems, companies in the world are built up from small things. And if you don't care about the details, then you're not going to necessarily have the big product. So I'm quite detail-oriented, but at the same time, trying to be strategic, setting a tone around what does good look like? What do we expect? Holding ourselves collectively to high standards, team orientation, team. We will not win as individuals. I say this all the time. You can be a star in our industry, but you cannot do that at BNY. We want people who are going to put our customers first, who are going to care about our employees, who are going to be high performing and human and bring a team orientation to what they do.
The team part is really hard. I mean, do you have a method? Are there any books or people or mentors or coaches who helped you learn the way to build an effective team?
Yeah, it was coaches. I have a coach. In fact, every member of our 20 or so person executive team has a coach. And
human beings, not agents.
A human being. Now, hopefully we also get some prompts. It's funny that you say it. I actually asked AI, so I use a couple of different AI systems myself in personal life, and somebody gave me this tip. You should do it if you haven't done it. You should go to the AI system that you use the most, and you should ask it to give you feedback, both positive and constructive. You have to specifically prompt it for the constructive because AI systems are kind of programmed to be a little nice. So you have to actually ask it to tease it out. And it gave me a performance review of how I engage with AI. And it gave me suggestions for how to be more effective. It's a thing. If you haven't done it, you should try it.
Fascinating. How was your performance review?
It was actually pretty good. And for fun, I actually did it in a small dinner. I actually had the AI read it out to a small group dinner of my leaders because I wanted them also to get the point about the fact that we're all on our learning journey on AI. Use this technology and use it in new and interesting ways. But we all have a coach as a leadership team. And some of our folks were a little skeptical when we first came up with the idea. And then I said to them very simply, please name me an athlete or name me a sports team that doesn't have a coach. And if you think that the world's best athletes, who are the best, they have coaches because they believe they can get even better. So it doesn't matter how good you think we are as a team, how good we think we are as individuals. We can get better. And they coach us not only individually, but they also coach us as a group. So while we each have a coach, the coaches work behind the scenes together to synthesize how can we be more effective as a team.
And do you find that also makes the team more open to change?
100%. In fact, it's done several things. It's built trust it's helped us to work on trust. And that's gone very much, it's not just a cultural high-level concept. If you're trying to break silos in an organization, what that really means, and reorganizing the company, which is what we've done, we've created dependencies inside the company. Every business in the company is dependent on our customer service group to do an amazing job, on our client onboarding team to do a first-class job.
Payments Pete.
To rely on each other and each other's businesses and functions to be able to come together as a whole. Now, if you have mutual dependency, you have to have trust. So coaching on trust and how to build trust between people was actually a core business requirement because otherwise we couldn't organize the company in that way. So it's very purposeful and it's been very effective.
But so many companies struggle with that.
And it can be because of, it could be ego, it could be people think that they're beyond it. But again, that's where leadership's about, which is we're all works in progress. I am better because of the fact that I have had a coach and I have one. And as a team, I think we've recognized the value of it. Nobody inside our company in our executive committee questions that anymore.
You know, I've had dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of these conversations with CEOs over the last 10, 15 years. And one of the things they almost uniformly tell me is that there is no real preparation for the job. You had a great set of experience leading up to the job. But when you step into the job, it's different than you thought. It's different than you prepared for. What was the biggest thing that surprised you about being CEO, that you wish somebody had told you before you got there?
Well, first of all, I agree with the premise. It's definitely a little different. And despite the fact that, and I've had the good opportunity to watch CEOs up close, so I thought I knew, but I didn't. Look, it's true what people say. It's a little bit lonely. The buck stops with you. But maybe on the plus side, I didn't fully appreciate, maybe it was a little bit naive, how much CEOs can actually get done and how CEOs can truly change the trajectories of companies in fairly short periods of time. And setting a cultural tone, setting a set of expectations is incredibly powerful. I had somehow thought that it was a role where, and I'd almost maybe been conditioned to believe that it was a role where you couldn't necessarily generate the change. Everything was very second or third hand because of the nature of the role. But actually, I've been surprised to the plus on how much is possible for...
Fascinating. You thought maybe it was more ceremonial,
yes.
and it's turned out
ceremonial,
more agency.
Or maybe a little bit everything through delegation, second hand, third hand, pushing on a string, that type of stuff. But that has not turned out to be the case.
Let me ask you some quick questions before I let you go. You're a New Yorker.
Yeah.
Yankees or Mets?
Oh, not a huge baseball guy. Sorry.
Oh, really?
Still,
Forget
yeah,
them both.
I kept that soccer
Well, do you
thing.
watch much TV? Because my next question is about TV.
I watch a little bit of TV.
Landman or Ted Lasso?
Oh,
Very different leadership styles.
So I haven't watched either of them, but
Oh my God.
But I do watch a little bit of TV, but I haven't watched either of those shows.
I recommend both.
Oh, is
I
that right?
recommend
I
both.
think I'd be more of a landman guy, to be honest. I like some of the other things in that Paramount universe.
Favorite place to be in January, snow-filled mountains or the beach?
Beach.
Beach. Well, we're glad you took the trouble to be here. CEO other than yourself that you most admire?
Oh, there are so many. Watching the I love transformation stories, and I love seeing how people can take something and make even more of it than was there before. Satya, Microsoft,
amazing story.
Doug McMillan, we talked about earlier on
Yes.
in the context of Walmart, absolutely fantastic. And of course, you just have to respect people who also have built something out of nothing. You know, I believe that leadership, if you can take little nuggets from various folks. I mean, what Elon Musk, he's a first principles thinker. Just think about the technology and the science companies that he's essentially built. Super impressive, and learned a lot. Like I said, my AI journey started with him secondhand.
Yeah. Last question. You're a financial man. You understand markets well. In 2026, will the market end up or down?
So
So yes, it's one or the other.
We're preparers, not predictors. I actually think that the economy in the U.S. is doing pretty well.
Yeah.
I think it's more likely that it will be up, not down. But it's our job to prepare for everything, and that's what we do.
Robin Vince, fascinating conversation. Thanks a lot for getting up early in the morning and having it with us.
Good to be with you, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you.